Hello, Spike Chartel here with another video about another potato. Which one is it going to be today?
Now,
asshole? Fuck. I knew this was going to have to be done eventually. I put this video off for a long time, and I really don't want to do this if you want the truth. Aside from the horrid arguments presented from this alleged comic, the guy just isn't funny. Now, I know what y'all are thinking, and it's not that it's an anti-gun rant that I don't want to do this video either. I mean, George Carlin was hardly pro-gun, yet I still consider him to be one of the best comics of all time. No, I don't like this kangaroo fucker because he's really just a washed-out alcoholic that got way more attention than he deserved, and this rant is the reason why. Because as y'all know, the gun control supporter will latch on to the weakest arguments, even when they're coming from a drunken, unfunny Seth MacFarlane-looking wannabe. Something about foreign accents that they think seems to lend credibility to any argument, I think. Anyways, I suppose I should just get to it. The longer I put this off, the harder it's going to get.
before I start saying this, I want to say this, right? I believe in your right as Americans to have guns.
No, you don't.
I'm not trying to stop you from having guns. All I'm saying is this is my personal belief on the opinion. My opinion on the... it doesn't matter. I don't like guns.
Well, at least he's being honest. Still doesn't make up for not being funny, though.
Right? I'm going to say some things that are just facts, right?
Yeah, facts.
In Australia, we had guns, right? Right up until 1996. And in 1996, Australia had the biggest massacre on earth. Still hasn't been beaten. And... now, after that, they banned the guns. Now, in the 10 years before Port Arthur, there was 10 massacres. Since the gun ban in 1996, there hasn't been a single massacre since.
Well, that isn't entirely true. I mean, if you want to be honest about this, that is. I mean, Australia had a massacre on June 23rd of 2000 that killed 15 in Queensland. Then there was another one on February 7th, 2009 that killed 10 in Victoria, followed by a massacre that beats the Port Arthur massacre of 35 by 100 on February 9th of the same year in the same area. Sure, none of these involved guns, but I'm pretty sure the victims in all of these massacres aren't any less dead because of it. I might also add that the February 9th massacre beats any one mass shooting in the United States by a mile. Now, I know you want to say it still happens more often in the States, but to be honest, the rate is probably pretty comparable, seeing as how Texas has more people than Australia. But, you know, math is hard for Bloomberg cult members and drunken sots who like to use koala bears for masturbation.
I don't know how or why this happened. Maybe it was a coincidence, right? Now, please understand that I understand that Australia and America are two vastly different cultures with different people, right?
Yes, one is a culture of free people who won their independence from the English and constantly stay vigilant of those in power, and the other is a culture of kangaroo rape and giving up liberty at the first sign of danger because they're still England's bitch.
I get it. In Australia, we had the biggest massacre on earth, and the Australian government went, "That's it, no more guns." And we all went, yeah, right then, that seems fair enough, really.
And you're actually proud of this, proving that you're a nation of bitches.
Now, in America, you have the Sandy Hook massacre where little tiny children died, and your government went, maybe we'll get rid of the big guns? And 50% of you went, fuck you, don't take my guns!
Actually, it was more like 60%, but whatever. I might also like to add that those so-called big scary guns are actually used in fewer homicides than clubs, hammers, or knives. And they aren't actually as big and scary as people think they are. A typical hunting rifle has a much larger caliber than these so-called big scary guns, and they also have a higher muzzle velocity. But explaining the physics of firearms to a mongoloid like Jeffries or his fans would be like playing Mozart for a tree frog.
So here's where it gets confusing.
It's only confusing for you because you downed a bottle of Thunderbird before the show.
Right? Now, as I said, I'm all for your Second Amendment rights. I think you should be able to have guns. It's in your Constitution. What I am not for is bullshit arguments and lies. There is one argument and one argument alone for having a gun, and this is the argument. Fuck off. I like guns.
Hypocrisy much? Seriously, you talk about not liking bullshit arguments, then turn around and offer one? I know you're allegedly a comedian and all, but good comedians can come up with better punchlines than that. And don't think it's because I'm pro-gun either that I think your punchlines suck. George Carlin was one of the best of all time and was hardly pro-gun with statements like this one.
There are some more people with missing chromosomes who ought to be thrown screaming from a helicopter. Gun enthusiasts, you know?
Now that's funny, even though it's being said about people on my side of the gun debate. Delivery man, are you even capable of it in your drunken stupor?
It's not the best argument, but it's all you've got. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I like something, don't take it away from me. But don't give me this other bullshit. The main one is, I need it for protection. I need to protect me, I need to protect my family.
How exactly is that a bullshit argument? Are you suggesting that people shouldn't try to protect their family? Kinda dark territory for a comedy act. And while really talented comedians can pull that off, you aren't that talented, Jim.
Really? Is that why they're called assault rifles? Is it? Never heard of these fucking protection rifles you speak of?
Wow. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the half-assed attempt at a zinger that every Bloomberg potato is going to repeat from now until the end of time like it's the profound wisdom of Buddha. I mean, never mention the fact that assault rifles aren't even legal to buy in the United States if they were made after 1986, making them prohibitively expensive to all but the wealthiest of people, and even then you have to have a ton of licensing to buy one, and that licensing isn't cheap. Bloomberg potatoes will still think rifles like the AR-15 are assault rifles, even though the politicians that try to ban them don't call them that because they know knowledgeable people will call them out on their bullshit in a second.
Protection? What the fuck are you talking about? You have a gun in your house, you're 80% more likely to use that gun on yourself than to shoot someone else. And people think, well, that'd never happen to me. You don't know that, because you know what? From time to time, we all get sad. One day you're happy, then you're sad, and then, it was...
I'm pretty sure people were committing suicide long before guns were invented. Hell, mostly gun-free Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. Just saying.
Protection? I had a break-in in Manchester, England, where I was tied up, I had my head cut, they threatened to rape my girlfriend, they came through the window with a machete and a hammer, and Americans always go, well, imagine if you had a gun. And I'm like, all right. I was naked at the time. I wasn't wearing my holster. I wasn't staring at the window waiting for cunts with machetes to come through. Like, what world do you live in where you're constantly fucking ready?
So, you're one case of being caught off guard in the middle of the night because you were too stupid to secure your home before going to sleep somehow invalidates the protection argument. I mean, no normal person is waiting by the window to shoot anyone that might come through. But you know, if you live in a bad area, or if you're someone that criminals might want to hold hostage, then you take precautions like locking doors and windows. Of course, nothing is foolproof, and no one is really saying that. I might add that there are holsters that are meant to be tucked in between the mattress and box spring just for this kind of thing. Naked or not, you can still draw a pistol that is in one of these quite easily and get off a few shots easily if need be. Of course, the sight of the gun will make most criminals beat feet without having to fire a single shot. But, you know, had you bothered to ask someone that knows these kind of things instead of just mocking them, you would know this.
You have guns because you like guns. That's why you go to gun conventions. That's why you read gun magazines. None of you give a shit about home security. None of you go to home security conventions. None of you read Padlock Monthly. None of you have a Facebook picture of you behind a secure door going, fucking yeah.
You do realize that protection can mean outside the home, right? I might also point out that yes, we do like guns as well. So fucking what? Liking guns doesn't invalidate the protection argument in the slightest. I mean, no one would say that you couldn't drive across the country in an expensive sports car just because you like expensive sports cars. And if they did, you'd look at them like they were mentally damaged.
Like you're going to be ready if someone comes into your house. You have it at all fucking time. By the way, most people who are breaking into your house just want your fucking TV. You think that people are coming to murder your family? How many fucking enemies do you have? Geez, you think a lot of yourself if you think everyone's coming to murder you.
So I suppose serial killers and rapists don't exist, right? I mean, sure, most people that break into homes are just looking to make off with some valuables. But we are a species of highly evolved, emotional, and sentient apes. And that being the case, some of us have some really fucked up wiring going on, and like to do things like break into homes and murder people in front of their families, then maybe have sex with the corpse just for fun. If someone's breaking into my house, I don't know what their intentions are, and I would be a damn fool not to assume the worst. If it's just some asshole looking to take my TV, well, the sight of Mr. 9mm is going to send that asshole on his merry way, without me having to fire one shot 99% of the time. If, on the other hand, is some twisted Dexter-like fucker that wants to murder then rape my significant other while making me watch just because it's Tuesday, well, that motherfucker's gotta die. And honestly, in that case, Darwinian evolution has made the world a better place.
See, if you have it readily available, it becomes unsafe. You have it in your bedside table, one of your kids picks it up, thinks it's a toy, shoots another one of your kids. Happens every fucking day. People go, that'll never happen in my house, because I'm a responsible gun owner. I keep my guns locked in a safe. Then there's no fucking protection! Someone comes into the house, you're like, wait there, fuckface. Oh, you've come to the wrong house here, buddy boy. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna fuck you up. Okay. Is it 32 to the left or 32 to the right? Your mother's birthday? Why the fuck would I know your fucking mother's birthday? Maybe if you didn't leave the window open because it's too hot in here, we wouldn't be getting fucking murdered, right?
Here we go with the classic think of the children argument and how you can't use guns to keep you safe if you keep them in a safe. People that make this argument just don't think. First off, the idiot that leaves a gun where their kid can easily get it probably isn't the most attentive or caring parent. These are the type of parents that end up letting little Johnny wander into traffic, and when he gets turned into a pancake by a bus, no one blames the bus. They blame the parents, and rightfully so. Second, there is such a thing as keeping a gun on your person. Just because you keep most of your guns in a safe doesn't mean that you can't have one on you. If it's on you, then you always know where it is, and it's going to be a lot harder for your kid to get a hold of it. I might also add there is such a thing as actually teaching your kids about guns and why they shouldn't handle them without adult supervision. I mean, I know most people in the 21st century would rather think of their children as window dressing than actual humans that need interaction, but there is such a thing as responsible parenting, and it's something we should encourage more people to do, not enable them to do it less.
I find the NRA to be hard work. But the fact that they always think the answer is more guns. After Sandy Hook happened, the NRA said, and I quote, "None of this would have happened if the teachers had guns." I think they're forgetting what school was like. Does anyone remember that casual teacher that used to, whenever she came onto school, that relief teacher came, you and your friends would see her and go, "Oh, we're going to make her cry." And then she'd stand in front of the class with a bit of chalk and her hands would be shaking. And you go, "You're never getting married, are you, miss? Never going to happen for you." Then she'd get back to a 1967 Volkswagen Beetle. She'd be crying over the steering wheel, just, "Why don't they like me? Let's give that cunt a gun and see how things work out."
Wow, You sound like you were always a cockstain. Must be an Australian thing. Honestly, though, you act as if the only people that ever get hired to be teachers are unstable basket cases that can't handle dick-headed snot-nosed teenagers, and that we don't do any kind of vetting of these people at all before giving them the job. I can speak from personal experience that you can't even get a job as a fucking janitor in a school if you have even a misdemeanor dishonored check charge on your record. But they're going to let people who are unstable basket cases be teachers. Honestly, I don't know what school you went to either, but when I was going to school, that kind of shit would have landed me a suspension. Now, that's not to say that one teacher couldn't snap under pressure. Again, nothing is foolproof. But do you really think leaving everyone in the school completely defenseless against a raging psychopath bent on killing as many people as they can is a better option? I might also add that even in the hypothetical teacher snapping situation, you have all the other teachers that are armed and can put a stop to it before it gets too far out of hand. I might also add that in that highly hypothetical situation, it's likely that if the teachers aren't already allowed to carry guns, that's probably not going to stop the one that snaps from bringing a gun to the school anyway, and then it's even worse because everyone else is limited in what they can do to stop the massacre.
And then they go, oh, well, answer to that, we'll just add more guns. They go, we'll put an armed security guard at every school across America. Yeah, that'll work out. The average security guard in America earns $16 an hour. Not a lot of wiggle room to be a fucking hero. Someone comes onto the school and you've got Kevin. Now, I'm sure Kevin's shit hot at Call of Duty, but it might not fucking cut it, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, $16 an hour is a pretty decent wage in this country at the moment. That being said, though, I wonder what you're getting at here. You're either saying that the security guard is going to be inept because of their pay, or you're saying that they aren't going to care enough to try and stop the shooter because they only make $16 an hour. Here's the thing, though. Armed security guards are actually pretty well trained for the most part. Hell, some of them are better trained than a lot of cops. I might also add that $16 an hour isn't all that much less than what your average patrolman makes either. As far as if you're saying that they just wouldn't give a shit, well, I suppose if you wanted to completely ignore the empathy factor in humans, you could say that. Fact is, though, in life and death situations like that, most halfway decent people will try to stop the massacre if they can, because they don't want to feel the guilt of inaction when they could have done something. I know I would. Empathy is a powerful emotion, and it's one of the reasons we've survived as long as we have as a species, even though we're slow, pink, and tasty to most predators, and do stupid shit like build nukes to threaten each other with.
Now, I understand that when I'm doing this joke in this room, 50% of you agree with me, 50% of you don't agree with me, and I do respect the people who don't agree with me. Don't think I don't. The 50% that don't agree with me, 20% of those people are smart enough to realise this is a comedy show and it's not to be taken seriously, and they're laughing along because it's just funny jokes, right? And then the next 20% are sort of phased out a little bit and looking around going, wonder how they got that chandelier up there. And then there's the last 10%, and they're fucking furious. Right now, in this room, and the people watching at home, 10% of you are fucking seething. And for a couple of reasons. First reason, I'm making good points.
No, they're pissed the fuck off because they paid $50 each to see a comedian and they got a drunken hack instead. I'd be just as pissed off if I'd paid that kind of money to see George Lopez, Bob Saget, or John Oliver, and not known that they were unfunny hacks beforehand.
Unless you're an American Indian, you're a fucking immigrant as well, so fuck off. People get so precious about it. Like, I understand that to Americans your constitution is very important. I respect it, but please understand that every country has one as well. It's no more special than any other constitution. We have one in Australia. I don't know what it says.
Now there's something to be proud of. Complete and total ignorance of your homeland's constitution. I guess Twilight fandom politics aren't unique to America. Now part of this video is missing, but he's saying the second reason is that people are pissed the fuck off because he's foreign, and that if you're not a Native American, you're an immigrant. This is just full-blown PC SJW fuckery at work here. First the fuck off, asshole. I was born in this country, thus I'm not an immigrant. If you really want to go there though, you're not native to Australia either, by your own logic, as it was originally inhabited by Aboriginals. But I'm guessing that's something you down under potatoes don't want to talk about. I might also add to any SJW fucks watching that want to get pissed off at me saying that someone isn't an immigrant if they are born here and not Native American can fuck right the fuck off as well. Because even by this clown's flawed logic, I'm still not an immigrant in this nation, as I am Irish, German, and Cherokee. You know, those people that were forced on the Trail of Tears by Andrew Jackson? Yeah, the fucking Cherokee.
I've never seen it. If there's a problem, we'll check it, but everything's going fine. And don't get me wrong, I get that the Constitution's important to you. I get it, right? I've had people come up to me in my face and scream at me in car parks as I'm leaving the theatre, going, "You cannot change the Second Amendment." And I'm like, yes, you can. It's called an amendment. Like, if you can't change something, it's called an amendment. See, many of you need a thesaurus more than you need a constitution.
Yes, because a few anecdotal stories about dumbasses that don't know how to articulate an argument invalidates the whole argument. You know, I could show you quite a few examples of people on your side of this that act the same way as well.
And if you don't know what a thesaurus is, get a dictionary, work your way forward. Don't think your constitution's set in stone. You've changed things before. You used to have prohibition in there, right? And then people were like, hey, who likes getting fucked up? Yeah, I like getting fucked up too. Let's get that one out. Let's get that one out.
So one bad change to the Constitution justifies another?
You used to have this other thing in America called slavery! And then Lincoln came along and went, that's it, no more slaves. And 50% of you went, fuck you, don't take my slaves! And then the same bullshit arguments came out that you have with guns. Why should I have my slaves taken off me? I'm a responsible slave owner. I am trained in how to use my slaves safely. Just because that guy mistreated his slaves doesn't mean that my rights should be taken away from me. I use my slaves to protect my family. I keep my slaves locked in a safe.
Ah, yes, the classic false equivalency that all Bloomberg-style potatoes like to throw around. Because you know, owning inanimate objects is exactly the same as owning a sentient human being. The funny thing about this argument that he's making here, though, is that it's completely out of ignorance. I say that because slavery isn't even mentioned in the Constitution until the 13th Amendment that abolished it. And while that was a good thing to do for obvious reasons, to anyone that isn't a brain-dead storm fag, that still isn't justification to strip away what many consider to be an unalienable right. Actually, if anything, it's justification to keep the Second Amendment around and infringement-free, as the actual history of gun control is quite racist, and many of the first gun control laws in the United States were aimed at disarming recently freed slaves, and were passed by Klan-friendly politicians that wanted to make sure their buddies in the white sheets didn't have to worry about Toby firing back on their bigoted asses. Today, most of the gun control laws and proposals aren't directed so much at races anymore, but as a means to disarm those lower in the socioeconomic food chain. It's about keeping the poor disarmed now, with prohibitively expensive infringements, while the wealthy that can afford all the nickel and diming get to keep their guns and armed security. Anyone that supports things like extra taxes on ammo and insurance are either willfully blind to reality or wealthy elites that want to keep the poor in their place.
Have my guns taken off me. I've done nothing wrong. Look, I agree with you. If you're a responsible gun owner and you don't fuck around with them, then you should be allowed your guns. You really should. But that's not how society works. We have to play to the 1% that are such fuckwits they ruin it for the rest of us. We have to walk as slow as our slowest person to keep society fucking moving.
So we have to make rules based on the slowest and weakest members of our society for everyone to follow? Does this mean we all have to wear helmets because they're mentally challenged and disturbed people that like to bang their heads against brick walls? What about everyone having to wear diapers because some of us don't have the mental capacity to control our bodily functions? This seems like a really inefficient and idiotic way to run a society, if you ask me.
Right? I take drugs like a fucking champion. Right?
Well, you definitely had to be on some really strong drugs to come up with this shitty act. I suppose, though, there's always going to be low-hanging fruit that will laugh at anything. That's why comedians like you, Lopez, and Saget will always have careers.
We should all be allowed to take fucking drugs, but we can't, can we? Because Sarah took drugs and she stabbed her fucking kids. Thanks, Sarah, you fucked it up for everyone, right?
Actually, some crazy bitch stabbing her kids isn't really good justification to make drugs illegal either. Hell, in a situation like that, it's just as likely Sarah could have been taking some shit her doctor prescribed to her as it being something illegal. I might also add that drugs being illegal means that a lot of drugs on the black market aren't properly made, like meth. And because of that, they tend to have strange side effects they normally wouldn't have. I might also add, where the fuck was this bitch's family in all of this? Maybe if we weren't so fucking self-absorbed as a society, hypothetical Sarah's hypothetical kids would still be hypothetically alive today.
Everyone should be allowed to drive their car as fast as they can do it, right?
What? Is you fucking serious? This ought to be interesting.
But we can't because Jonathan got drunk and ran over a family. Thanks, Jonathan! Now I have to drive at 30, you fucking idiot!
Wow. I'm pretty sure drunk drivers are a danger to others on the road with or without speed limits. And I'm pretty sure speed limits don't have anything to do with drunk drivers. What's funny though, is when a drunk driver does crash into and kill someone, you don't see people blaming the booze or the car and calling for tighter regulations on both. No, they blame the asshole that got behind the wheel under the influence, and rightly so. Seriously, who finds you funny? They must be some really dumb motherfuckers.
See, that's the thing. Why should I have my guns taken off me? I'm responsible just because that guy's crazy. Who's to say you're not crazy? That's the thing about crazy people. They don't know they're crazy. That's what makes them crazy.
And guns or no guns, they would still be crazy and a threat to public safety. They might not know they're crazy, but the people around them should be able to tell if they have any kind of perception at all. Now, some people can tell when they are losing it, and honestly, if we didn't have such a stigma to mental illness, people would be more likely to seek treatment, and their friends would be more likely to persuade them to get treatment as well.
The only thing you know for sure on this earth is I think, therefore I am. You know that you exist. Anything past that is open to interpretation, right? You know you exist and that's it. Right now, I think I'm in Boston talking to 1,200 people. That's what I think I'm doing. But there is a good to fair chance that I'm in a mental home standing in front of a white wall going, I hate guns, I hate guns, I hate guns.
You finally got a chuckle out of me. You definitely should be in a mental institution as challenged as you are. I'm just wondering where your helmet is.
See, one of the better arguments is, well, if you take the guns away, then only the criminals will have guns. Not true. When they banned the guns in Australia, it worked. When they banned them in Britain, it worked. Okay. That Bushmaster gun that the kid was going to use in Sandy Hook cost like $1,000 American. You can buy it in Walmart. It'll be delivered to your house. That's it, man. $1,000, right? That same gun in Australia on the black market costs $34,000. Now, if you have $34,000, you don't need to be a criminal.
Yes, because mobsters don't exist, right?
You've got $34,000. You're a great little saver. Keep going. So that covers the criminals, but that doesn't cover the people who want to murder your family, that are coming after you and your family. It kind of does. Like, the people who do the massacres, it covers them because, okay, the kid at Colorado who thought he was the Joker, let's say that he had some social issues. The kid at Sandy Hook was Asperger's as fuck. Right? I don't know if you know a lot about the black market, but you can't just rock up at the docks going, guns! Who wants to sell me a gun?
Yes, because the arson attack that killed 135 people in Victoria, Australia, couldn't have possibly been done by either one of these guys, right? Show me one public mass shooting where 135 people were killed at once. I know this is kind of hard to swallow for a lot of people, but if you take guns out of the equation, fucked up people are going to find other methods to do fucked up things like mass murder. And a lot of these methods are far more effective than firearms. As bad as an Adam Lanza and James Holmes are, they pale in comparison to Timothy McVeigh or Osama bin Laden.
Now, I'm going to wrap this up. We won't talk about it anymore. Now, see, the one thing that I do really agree with the right to bear arms, I really agree with that. The real reason it was written was so that you could form a militia to fight against a tyrannical government. In case the government became a bunch of cunts, you could all get your guns and fight back. And that's why it was written. Yeah! And that made a hell of a lot of sense when it was just muskets.
I'm pretty sure that when that was written, arms meant a hell of a lot more than just muskets. Hell, by that point in time, muzzle-loaded rifles had hit the scene, and artillery and cavalry had been a thing for a while as well. Not only that, but there were also muzzle-loaded pistols as well, and many people carried more than one to get around that whole having to reload after every shot. Also, I might point out that at that point in time, multi-shot weapons were in development, and there were even a few crude prototypes at that point. The founders knew that one day guns like that would be a reality. They weren't plebes. I might also add that they wrote it like they did because they wanted the citizenry to have access to the same small arms that the military had. Wars and rebellions are won with rifles, plain and simple.
But you do know the government has drones, right? You get that? You're bringing guns to a drone fight.
Ah, yes, because no American has any access to any kind of drone technology at all, nor are any of us smart enough to actually implement such things. May I present to you Exhibit A? While that little guy probably couldn't do much by itself, imagine a swarm of about 200 of these slightly scaled up and armed with something a little bigger than a pistol. Like, say, an AR-15 with a 100-round drum magazine. I think that could actually do a lot of damage to a fighting force. Furthermore, you're acting like we aren't a country that was founded by an army of tradesmen and farmers that went up against the most feared and powerful military in the world twice, and won. I might also add that one of the ways they did that was by covertly stealing weapons from the military they were fighting at the time. Look, if even a quarter of the able-bodied civilian population decided to take up arms against the government would be outnumbered 9-1. Why do you think governments get nervous about armed populaces? An armed poor and working class is the biggest threat to tyranny by the ruling class. Always has been and always will be.
Like, if we went back to muskets, I'm all for it. Keep the Second Amendment. If we all have muskets, muskets are awesome. Every cunt should be carrying a musket with them at all times. You know what's good about the musket? It gives you a lot of time to calm down. Someone calls your wife fat and you're like, fuck you, buddy. Ah, you're not a bad guy. You're all right.
Yes, because no one ever walked around with a loaded musket or flintlock pistol ever, right? I mean, forget that that was standard operating procedure back in those days, and in some cases people would walk around with more than one flintlock pistol so they didn't have to reload after each shot. I will say this though, I'm glad this video is at an end, because if I had to listen to this unfunny hack one more minute, I think I probably would have stabbed my eardrums to make it stop. Why anyone thinks this guy is funny at all is beyond me, because he's not. This is Spike Chartel, son of the intergalactic pizza cat. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you really like this video, make sure to share it with as many people as you can. And if you like my other videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button since you're already here, and then you'll know when the next video comes out. As always, have a nice day, and may the pounce be with you.